Hello everyone, and welcome to the second episode of my Zipkrowd series. My name is Dan, and I will be your host for the duration of this video. Now, I put some thought into what to do for this episode, and in the end, I just decided to finish off the farm I showed before. Now, for those of you who did not guess correctly, or those of you who just joined in the moment, what you see down below is actually going to be a ghast farm. Now, there are a couple of problems with making a ghast farm, mainly the fact that they are, in fact, 15 times rarer than, pigmen, require a 4x4x4 area of empty space before they can actually spawn. I believe it was supposed to be a 5x5x5, but anyway. So they require that area to be empty, and combined with the fact that they float makes the shifting floor design very inefficient at farming them. So in the end I decided to not use a shifting floor design and use a ghast collection system, which some of you may know from my gold farms. So basically I'm going to have ghasts on minecarts traveling down below the spawning floor, and all the mobs that get spawned up on the spawn floors will get pushed along by the ghasts on minecarts towards the slot at the edge, where they'll just fall down and die, or at least all of them except for ghasts. And that's the more interesting part about this design. So over here, as you can see, is the slot, and well, there's 4 of them, 4 spawning floors, and each one has its own slot. And there's some pigmen because it's not perfectly spawn proof. But anyway, there's currently no spawn floors there because I don't want mobs to be spawning before I want them to be spawning, which is when I finish the, farm. So for now there's no spawn spaces, but once there are, there'll be, 21 blocks by 40 blocks, I think, and there's 4 spawn spaces. Yeah, so anyway, all of them will get fall down and die, except for ghasts, because there's only a 3 block wide gap, so the ghasts will actually be stuck at the very edge, and that's where we're gonna actually kill them, or, collect them, as in the case. So all that redstone above that'll be there soon will actually be used to kill them and collect them. And as you can see over here, there's 4 drop down chutes where the mobs... Alright, so since I'm about to finish the video, or will finish the farm soon, let's explain this right here. So what I'm planning on doing is I'm gonna have minecarts traveling along the side there. And when the ghasts are pushed to the side, some of them will actually get on the minecart, and they'll travel along and fall into these chutes to the bottom and get collected. And that can be repeated for as many minecarts, I guess, as you have, in the chest, or up until the drop chute. And there is going to be a cutoff point over here, which will kind of prevent the filling up once it reaches a point, so there's no block up. And there's 4 of them because there's 4 spawn spaces. And yeah, I tried getting them to drop down into a single chute, but it turned out to be way too much of a hassle, so I have 4 drop areas instead. And yeah, so anyway, the way I decided to finish the video, or the rest of the video, is I'm gonna stop recording here, and I'll do a bit of work on the farm and start recording again once I've done significant amount of progress. Yeah, then I'll record a bit, show how much that's going, and I'll stop again and do some more work up until the farm is done. So anyway, hopefully in a couple of days I'll add on to the video, and a couple of days after that, and again up until the video is finished. So anyway, and it's probably time for an update. So as you can probably see, I finished off the redstone portion of the design. That's all completely done. So I've got tripwires in each section, which get triggered whenever a ghast enters the end area. And when that happens, the pistons get activated and push blocks into the ghast's heads, so the ghasts suffocate and give us all those ghast tears. So anyway, I've actually got all the wiring for the control over there. So you know, at the very edges, I can turn on and off the gas collection system. If they're on, then there's minecarts traveling along, and the gas get collected and dropped down into the drop chutes. If it's off, then there's no minecarts traveling around, and the gas would get killed by the pistons. And then we have the main switch in the center, or you know, off to the side there. And if it's off, then nothing happens, and if it's on, then the gas travel along the railways and sweep the mobs down to the edge. There shouldn't be too much lag caused by this, because you know, there's really not a lot of redstone. It's just 20 gas traveling along the railways. But anyway, as you can see, there's still some spaces for mobs to spawn, so I've still got pigmen spawning around, but I'll take care of that a bit later. There's the redstone going down. I needed it to be going into over here, so I had to play around a bit and with inverting it and pistons down and everything to make sure there's no spawn spaces over here. But anyway, the essential one is actually either locks or opens the main clock here, and the clock over here is well, the clock outputs to two directions here and two directions here, and it goes sequentially, so the gas traveling along the, you know, in the spawn platform A, B, C, D, and then back to A, and it cycles that way. And because of that, you kind of get more of a mob cap than you might think. Yeah, I kind of ran out of iron blocks while building this, so I had to start using gold blocks, as you can see, but it's fine. I'll probably find a bit more iron blocks around, hopefully. But anyway, you know, I just didn't really feel like crafting iron blocks at the moment. Yeah, that's about it. So what next? I'll probably finish off the sides and maybe start on the ceiling after that. That's probably a good idea. Yeah. So after that, the only thing left would be to get the ghasts into place and get the spawning floors built. So yeah, after that I'll probably get the ghasts. After all, there's no point in getting the spawn floors before, you know, the ghasts are in place. So that's the walls of each enclosure done, and by now there's absolutely no spawnable spaces left. I've made sure, you know, there's absolutely none, so no mobs spawn in. So once the spawn platforms are in, they're going to be the only available spawn spaces. So what I'm going to do next is build the ceiling. And that's one of the roofs done, and the other three are going along just fine. So I'll finish the others and be back. And here we go. That's all 4 roofs are now done. And I've put them in like that. I'm thinking of putting in a bit of carpets around just to make it look better, but it looks pretty good already. The stained glass really turned out a lot better than I expected. But yeah, maybe a bit of something in the center as well, because it looks a bit bland at the moment. But anyway, other than that, all that's left is really to put in the ghasts and get the spawn floors into place. And for that, I'm probably gonna ask someone to help me out, because yeah, putting in the spawn floors, you have to remember that the spawn floors are large enough that no matter where you are, you still have some spaces further away from you and, you know, capable of actually acting as spawn spaces. And if any ghasts spawn in, as you can imagine, there's a huge ton of glass around, and if that, you know, if there's a ghast there, then glass is the furthest thing you want to have close by. But yeah, other than that, I am off to fetch me some ghasts, and I will be back. Alright, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this farm is actually not operational and will not be able to become operational by the time I finish this episode. And the reason for that is I found 7, or actually 8 now, big problems with the farm that need to be fixed. And yeah, let's just say that they're big enough that I was at a point where I was planning on just mothballing this entire setup and traveling to a new location and rebuilding from scratch. One of the larger problems I encountered is the fact that I did not take LC values into consideration at all while building this, so this farm is in fact already, without any spawn spaces and whatnot else, is already suboptimal. But because the latest snapshots show that the mob spawning mechanics are actually going to be changed, so LC values will no longer be important. That's no longer as important anymore. But what is important is that the suffocation points of the ghasts have changed, so the piston setup I have here will no longer work, so that needs to be redone. We found that there's a better method of setting up spawn floors, which actually require the trails for minecarts to be moved 2 blocks higher, which means that all of these, well, there's 5 in each one, so that's 20 lines of railroads that need to be completely destroyed and repositioned 2 blocks higher, which in and of itself is just a big of a job as actually replacing all of these pistons crushers with the new design. The item collection floors down there that I set up are in fact not working the way I wanted to. And for some reason they actually worked quite well in creative, so I thought they were fine, but apparently after around an hour or two, sometimes the minecarts interact with each other and just stop, so you lose half of the item drops because half of the item collection stops working, so that entire part needs to be rebuilt. And there's just a couple minor bug issues which are easy to fix as well, but why? I just thought I'd mention them. And finally, obviously, because the ghast suffocation points have changed, there's actually now points along the ghast transfer line which will now kill the ghasts, whereas before in 1.7 it was fine, but in the upcoming 1.8 it'll be broken, so I might as well fix it so it works in both. But yeah, you can kind of tell from this giant list that I did have reason to think about just completely throwing away this entire build and starting from scratch. But in the end I decided not to, simply because, well, I actually don't know. Tell me if you want me to rebuild, or if you feel that I should just change this one and get it working. The rebuild will obviously feature a different design. I kind of came up with a pinwheel pattern instead of this 2 to the side. It'll kind of be in a pinwheel formation instead. It's a lot different from this design, so if you want to see it, you'd obviously have to ask me to rebuild this entire build. But, if I get enough people thinking that I should just scrap this entire build and build a completely new one, I will. It'll actually probably take just as much time as it would to fix up this build, unfortunately. So, you can kind of tell that I'm not exactly in a happy mood because of this, but, well, what can you do, This just goes to show that before you finish or start building anything in survival, you should do a lot more testing in creative than you actually think you might need, because in the end it turns out you may need more than what you did, and you end up in a situation like this. Quite unfortunate, but what can you do? Yeah, this will unfortunately be the end of this episode, and depending on what you guys decide, the next episode will either feature me fixing this farm or me starting the completely rebuild of the next farm, I guess, which will still be a ghast farm. It'll just be slightly different from this one. So, this is Dan, and I'm signing off. See you guys. Hope you have, hope you have a better time than me. I'm kind of, oh well.